Peter and I are joined by Wade Tatangelo from Creative Loafing. Wade had a cool week, or maybe it was last week, but he got to talk to Slash from GNR and now with Velvet VP. I was trying to think of the other thing. But how cool. Welcome to the show, Wade.
Thank you. Welcome. You guys, pleasure to be here. Yeah, it was very cool talking to Slash.
Well, tell us some of the things. I mean, we want to hear about your cover story, but we also want to hear about some of the things that maybe didn't make it to the cover story.
Well, I mean, most of it made it in. Slash is a very affable, articulate guy, which, he's well known for his partying ways. And part of the stuff that didn't make it in, I did ask him, he's still partying every now and then. And, he hasn't completely gone clean. But he's managed to, he's one of in the top bands of the 80s, Guns N' Roses. Now he's resurfaced with Velvet Revolver. And he's a nice guy, the kind of guy you want to go have a beer with. Whereas I can't say...
He's mellow, though, right?
Very mellow. Very Southern California mellow dude.
He looks like the kind of guy you'd have a bottle of tequila with, actually, as opposed to a beer. So
yeah, you're probably right. I think...
Wasn't he promoting, like, Black Death vodka at one point? And,
I think on the cover of the Appetite for Destruction album, on the inside, he's got a bottle of Jack in his hand, so...
now in your cover story, you say how it is the 20th reunion of Appetite for Destruction, and I know that what your last question was, but being a music critic, don't you think it'd be a great time 20 years later for them to regroup, and do you really don't think it's going to happen?
No, it would be great, and in the essay that you're talking about, argue that Appetite for Destruction, which came out in the summer of '87, there still hasn't been a better hard rock album since then. So yeah, I would love to see a reunion of the original Gunners. But as Slash put, it ain't going to happen.
Not because he doesn't want it to, though.
He made it sound like Axl doesn't want it to happen. And that they're all financially well off, and for whatever reasons, their egos, it's not going to...
Nobody needs to tour at this point.
No one needs the money, exactly. And, it's not worth them burying the hatchet.
I have to say, I loved the line you wrote in the review when you're talking about, Appetite 20 years later. You said Guns N' Roses was full of swagger, malice, and romance. Where'd you come up with that?
Well, it's just, a lot of albums, rock and roll albums, like I compare it to, like, people say, well, Wade, what about Pearl Jam's 10 or Nirvana's Nevermind? And those albums, it's confessional kind of, it's that woe is me sentiment. But Appetite for Destruction, like a great film or a great piece of journalism, it transported you to somewhere dangerous. And in this case, the seedy streets of L.A. Yeah. And you had Slash, who had grown up as a well-to-do kid, first in England and then in Beverly Hills. You had Axl from Indiana. And here they were immersed in it. They were doing the drugs and all this stuff. But they had this self-awareness. And when they reflected on it, it was almost like they were kind of like doing the Hunter S. Thompson thing. And through rock and roll, we're putting you in this very decadent scene, but decadent in a very...
In a compelling way. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Almost as if you were there, though. Yeah. I mean, you can live, feel, breathe it through their songs.
Exactly.
You talk to Slash a lot, too, about the difference between him and mainstream music today, or rock today. What were some of the... tell us, what were some of the questions that you asked, and how does it differ?
Well, we talked a lot about, the whole idea of the visceral rock god guitarist. The guy like Slash, who was kind of reclusive in high school, who wanted to meet girls, and he wanted to do all this via guitar. He heard Aerosmith's Rocks album. He heard Joe Perry play on that, and he wanted to do that. And today, the whole kind of post-grunge music, the idea of the guitar god's kind of been minimized, and there's this idea that that's passe, and that having chops. I mean, he said he played 12 hours a day when he was younger. I've interviewed other guitar gods, and that's what they did. They put in these hours and hours. Today you can use pedal effects, and there's all this technology that, as he says, some people use for good, like The Edge from U2. Somebody uses the effects for good, but a lot of guitarists, they don't build up their chops, they just use it as a crutch. And so that was one thing that we riff on for a bit.
You know what's funny, though? Back 20 years ago, MTV used to also do that Unplugged, when I believe that they were on it, too. But I don't know if you can do that nowadays with the... I mean, what do you think? With the younger groups coming out, where there's nothing plugged in, there's no mixers, or it's just them.
Yeah, are they too computer or studio dependent?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them I don't think could pull it off. The way, Guns N' Roses could do a song like Patience, which they are now doing... In fact, Patience is one of the Guns N' Roses songs. Slash said, at least, that they're going to be debuting when they play Saturday. Velvet Revolver plays Saturday at the Ford Amphitheater.
And that's something else that's very interesting too. How many songs do they play from each of their from Stone Temple Pilots or from Guns N' Roses?
Well, all that Slash would say when I asked him about that is he said we're going to be doing probably a couple Stone Temple Pilots songs because they're touring with Alice in Chains, and the idea is to do some '90s stuff. And he said we're going to debut Patience, which they hadn't done before. In the past, they've done Mr. Brownstone and It's So Easy, a pair of songs that Slash had a big hand in writing. They were from Appetite. That actually, from what I've read, Axl had no hand in writing, so it makes sense that they would maybe want to do those songs as opposed to. Plus, they're probably in Scott Weiland's vocal range more than maybe.
Very different, sound and whatnot. So.
How is the when you hear stories about old rock groups like Guns N' Roses, they were together since they were 19, blah blah blah, jamming in garages. How what's the vibe between the Velvet Revolver band mates, and did he talk about that at all?
Yeah, the question I asked him is, and this of course was an attempt to get him to maybe dish on Axl's, how do you compare the chemistry of Velvet Revolver with Guns N' Roses? And he was very diplomatic and, said that, we're wiser now, but there is this sameness that to be in a rock and roll band, you grew up with the same heroes, you grew up probably experimenting with the same kind of substances, but that he did in a very diplomatic way say that things are a lot better now, that there's not this maybe ego clash, because him and Duff McKagan and Matt Sorum, who were ex-Gunners, they're all in Velvet Revolver, and I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, you are, but it's different. But they're older, they're wiser, so the chemistry and the bond is going to be different.
That's exactly what he said. We're older and wiser now.
But in some ways, there's something about that when you're a young band that there's a hunger there. There's an edge to them. Velvet Revolver is a great band, but Guns N' Roses just felt genuinely dangerous.
Oh, of course. I can appreciate Velvet Revolver, and I won't slag them. But, compared to Guns N' Roses 20 years ago, no, And there was that danger, that hunger.
That raw. It was just raw. Yeah. Besides the concert this weekend, what else does Creative Loafing suggest for seeing dues?
Well, our film critic, Lance Goldenberg, did a great breakdown of the International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, which is kicking off Tonight, thank you. And he does pick it up. Even if you're not a Guns N' Roses fan, you're not in Slash, there's a big story on a breakdown of all those films. Even if you're hesitant, you're on the fence about checking out some of these films, check out Lance's breakdown of it. He does a really good job of, okay, this film's more mainstream, this is more this, and it can lead you in the right direction.
Excellent.
Well, wonderful. Now, you guys have a beer fest coming up, right?
We do have a beer fest coming up.
Do you know when that is? It's a Saturday. From 5 to something
somewhere.
It is
a Saturday, and
it's soon.
And it's soon.
It's soon.
And if you pick up a Creative Loafing, it'll have all that information in there.
Wade, thank you very much. We hope to see you next week at Media Mix at Tampa Bay Brewing Company in Central Ybor.
Looking forward to it.
Please
Thanks,
come.